Intel recently had a pretty widely reported issue with their 13th and 14th gen processors, the Raptor Lake CPUs, where in some cases there would be instability, some system crashes, memory errors, that kind of thing, stuff that you don't really want or expect to have in a high-end CPU. This is just an example of the sort of treadmill that we've become locked into, where we're always pushing higher, faster, further, using the technology that we currently have. What seems to have happened with that particular case, and this is not an anti-Intel rant at all, this is just talking about computer hardware in general. This is the first of a couple of examples I'm going to give. In this case, Intel is sort of pointing the finger back at the system board manufacturers, where some of the BIOS settings are too aggressive, excessively high voltages, power limits, and load line calibrations that are causing instability. So it's not clear exactly what the issue is, but it's definitely something where in the hunt to make things better, faster, more productive, you sometimes hit your head against things. Another example of this recently would have been the NVIDIA 4090 video card, the graphics card, where shortly after launch, people were complaining that one of the power connectors would overheat to the point where it actually melt and potentially damage the video card. So these cards now, these days, they're using a lot of power, hundreds of watts sometimes in the case of the NVIDIA 4090 when it's really cranking. So if you don't know, with an additional video card, usually there's an additional power requirement. There's not enough power generated by the PCI bus on most motherboards to power these bigger cards. So you'll have additional power connections coming from the power supply. And it's one of these connections that was causing problems with the 4090. It was supposedly resolved by using a different connector, a new style of connector. The style that they'd made was specific for that card, but apparently there were enough issues with it that it was replaced. It was a whole thing. But that's another example where you're pushing a power card to such a high degree, and it is a fantastic card from all accounts, but it's expensive and it's power hungry, and it's apparently so power hungry that it's melting its connectors. There is some vague notion that this may not be quite finished yet. I've heard a couple of things recently where there's still some issues, but we'll see how that goes. This is part of like an overarching problem where, because we're pushing so hard to get things done, and I applaud that. I'm glad to see technology going forward, but even with CPUs in general, we're making the manufacturing of these components is at such a tiny, almost atomic level, and we're down to a couple of nanometers, which is, when you're making these components, you're getting down to the size where you're actually getting close to atomic size. You're trying to make things out of an atom, basically. And you get things like quantum effects start to be present. It's really crazy when you look into it. It's fantastic technology, but we're really pushing the edge of this stuff. And I just wonder how long it can go. With AI, there's huge requirements for processing power, and in turn, huge requirements for just power in general. And we keep pressing and pressing, and it's just, you wonder when enough is enough. I'm kind of waiting to see. I think we're really banging up against the limits of the current type of technology. So I'm waiting to see if there's some big breakthrough like photonics or something like that will really, photonics being using light instead of electricity to transmit signals and stuff. If that's maybe an answer. I don't know. It's a really tough nut to crack. As much as I like, as I said, the advancement of technology, and we're always pressing ahead and trying to get stuff to work better, we just run into physical limits, I think, at times, and I think we're starting to do that here. Anyway, those links below as usual. I appreciate the time, and thanks for watching.